I'm Alessandro Carli, and I'm here today to talk to you about counterintuitiveness. Now, this is a subject that has to be treated in a certain way, and it has to be treated well. We have to go deep into it because it is a very serious matter. Because we are used to think intuitively. Now, let me get this straight, because I think we have to make some distinction as far as intuitiveness is concerned. We tend to understand and interpret intuitiveness as something that comes from within, right? Something that, that little lamp that lights up over your head and it says you to do certain things, that idea that comes seemingly out of nowhere. In fact, that's not it. That's not the intuitiveness that we're talking about. I'm talking about another type of intuitiveness here, which has more to do with your software, like your phone, your smartphone, or your tablet, or your PC, or whatever. When you have a software that's easy to use, that you call user-friendly, that's what we call an intuitive software. All right? So, that is what I'm talking about here. And you will see that in this sense, intuitiveness is nothing magic at all, as we may think, but it has to do with the way you use your intelligence. As we'll see in a moment how that works more specifically, but suffice it to say for now that the way we come up with ideas is not something that comes out of nowhere. It's something that has to do with thinking models, thinking patterns that we have, with all the information and all the knowledge that we have acquired over the years, and that we're now putting into practice. And so, with the experience and the knowledge that we've acquired, we come up with ideas that seemingly come out of nowhere, but there is a somewhere they come from. Now, that doesn't mean that these things are true, or that they are true every moment. And that's why we have to challenge our intuitiveness and go into a realm that we don't know, which is that of counterintuitiveness, in the way that I will explain you in just a second. But this is the important things that you've got to understand. Intuitiveness allows us to find solutions much faster. But the question is, are they the right ones? Or better yet, I don't like the term right, that's too moralistic. Are these the effective solutions? Are these the solutions that will work on the long run, on the medium and long term? That's the question. And the fact is that most of the time they don't. As a matter of fact, they create more problems down the road. So we have to find a way to come up with solutions that will stay solid. They're like bricks upon which we can build a house, or your business in this case. So we're going to get now into all the matter of counterintuitiveness. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we're going to get deeper into what we call counterintuitiveness. So here you see in this pyramid, you see 3 levels of intelligence, which is technical intelligence, emotional intelligence, and systemic intelligence. Now, what I mean by technical intelligence is the intelligence we usually use in solving problems every day. We use this type of intelligence. It's the conventional type of intelligence, whatever you want to call it, but it is the bottom line. Not because it is inferior to the others, but it is here because that's the one we use the most. And it's the type of intelligence where the solutions we come up with make sense. That's why usually they don't work on the long run, but as a matter of fact, they will create more problems down the line until we don't get to the root of that problem. As you see here, this arrow indicates that counterintuitiveness grows as you go up this pyramid, and it reaches its apex when you start thinking systemically. In other words, when you see things from a very, much wider angle, with, very different perspective. By default, to use a mathematical term, this type of intelligence is the intelligence where the ICS operates at. This is called the inner control system. All right? Inner control system. Some call it ego. I don't want to call it ego because ego has, some psychological or spiritual connotations, which, somehow, of course, they are related, but I don't want to treat it the same way. I want to treat this anthropologically as a biological software that we carry with us in our DNA since the beginning of time, since the time we've come to this planet. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about here, and it will want us to work at this level, at the technical level. We have to, if you want to find real good, solid solutions that will last on the long run, on the medium and medium-long term, we have to go up. We have to find solutions to these problems, looking at them from the emotional perspective, and then finally from the systemic perspective. And when you get to this stage, these solutions will be totally counterintuitive. They will not make sense. As a matter of fact, even now that you're listening to me, I might be thinking, what is this guy talking about? This doesn't make sense. Now, it's not because, I'm stupid or you're stupid. We're just thinking at another different level altogether. So, what we have to do here is to understand how we can, escalate this pyramid so that we can find solutions that are apparently nonsensical, but in fact they are the ones that work on the long run because they are systemic. Because you see the big picture and you work on the big picture. You don't address the problem directly, but you address the problem indirectly. The problem you're having at accepting this at first is because ICS does not want you to accept it. It does not want you to move from this level because this is the level where it has more control. It has no control over here. Here is where you have total freedom of thought. Here you have very little freedom of thought, where your thinking is pre-programmed by this biological software. This is why counterintuitiveness becomes so important. Now, how you get to that, now I'll get there in a moment. I will give you a few tips that you can use, very simple tips. Well, simple to understand, not simple to apply, so you will want perhaps to use them one at a time instead of all five at once. But it's a start. It's a start. And so this is going to help you, you will see, grow also as a human being and as a businessman at the same time. All right, so welcome back. I hope I made myself clear and that you kind of understood how all this intuitiveness and counterintuitiveness thing works and how it is related to the three types of different intelligences that we all have. We don't just have the technical intelligence, we all have access to all three types of intelligence, but we don't for some reason. Or there is a reason actually, which is the ICS. The ICS has more control when you think technically, because it's in the technical type of solution finding, solution making, that it has more control. You have a problem, got to solve it. I have control in that. That is what the ICS wants. When you start thinking long term, that's not so good for the ICS. It feels it doesn't have control. But that is exactly where you have control on the long term. So let me give you 5 tips, all right? So 5 suggestions. Let's also call them some operating procedure that you can use in your daily working life or in your private life. It doesn't really matter. But let's stick to your working life right now, your professional endeavor, your business. And you can apply them one at a time, a lot at a time. There's a lot of work there. They're very simple. Nothing difficult about this. But it requires some kind of effort, which is mostly due to the fact that you have to oppose your will to the ICS, which will want you to do one thing and one thing only, solve a problem. That's it. So let's start with the first one, which is dissociate from the problem and look at the big picture. That's the first suggestion, the first tip. And what does that mean? You have a problem, and the first thing you do is to focus on the problem. You have to solve it. That's what the ACS wants you to do. Have a problem, solve it. Refrain from that for a moment, for 30 seconds, for just 1 minute, and try to move back and try to look at the situation from another angle, from another perspective. And look at the big picture. Not only in the context that you're operating in, but also, going back in time and try to see how this problem came up. Because, problems don't come up out of nowhere. They are generated by something, and most of the time it's something that you do. Unwillingly, of course, but in some strategies that you've used in the past, which were good for the past, because that's what the ICS told you to do. You solved the problem was solved, but it also created the seed for future problems. So that's where we have to be careful. That's why you have to back away and see what may have generated the problem you're facing today, so that you don't make the same mistakes for the future. The second thing is challenge your solution. Don't stick to the first solution that comes to your mind. That is most probably what the ICS is going to suggest you, the first one, which is probably going to be the wrong one. And not the wrong one, the most ineffective one. The one that perhaps will solve you the problem right now, okay, but it won't solve you the problem on the long term. So challenge your solution and try to see, what are the possible consequences down the line. If I adopt the solution today, what will happen, or what can this turn into perhaps 1 month from now, or 6 months from now, a year or 2 years from now? Is that going to generate other problems? This requires some systemic skills, but at a very elementary stage, you can use that, because your brain, if you ask your brain the right questions, it will give you the right answers. The problem is, you have to ask them the right questions. And that's, the first little step that you can do. The third thing is, which other solutions would you adopt? In other words, we tend to adopt the solutions that best fit an emergency. We wait that a problem becomes an emergency before we even consider tackling it. Why? Because we have other problems tackling us all the time, emergencies. So you leave one situation on hold, and then all of a sudden it comes up as a problem. And that's because we don't do this type of exercise. Instead, ask yourself, if you were not in an emergency right this moment and you have this problem, what would you do? Which solution would you really adopt? I'll make you an example, a metaphor, right? Okay, you have pneumonia and you take antibiotics, right? Now, it's an emergency. Pneumonia is an emergency, so you have to take antibiotics. However, ask yourself this question: if I did not have pneumonia, if I just had a cold, would I still take antibiotics? Probably not, because antibiotics are for emergencies. The same thing here. Okay, perhaps you just think of yourself as, the problem you're tackling right now as a simple cold. What would you do? Of course, then perhaps it's not a simple cold, it's a pneumonia, so you still have to take antibiotics, but at the same time, you also think of solutions that will work on the long term. Because antibiotics do have side effects, you know that. And the same thing, all the solutions that you come up with, the problem that you're facing right now, they are going to have a side effect. So you have to be very aware of this, very conscious about this. So this is the one way that you can also look at the problem in a different way. The fourth thing is try to adopt a solution that you have more control over. You have a problem, the ICS will want to have control on that problem, and it will give you solutions, very intuitive solutions, to solve that problem. But the fact is that you have very little control on that, because until you see the problem as the problem, okay, you are not going to have control over that, because that problem is probably something that comes from outside. It's an external problem. We have no control. We have no controls over events. So that is what you have to think about when you're facing a problem. How much control do we really have? So out of the many solutions that you come up with, doing the previous 3 points, working on the previous 3 points, which is the one that you have most control over? And you will see that the one that you have most control over is a problem that involves you, totally, 100%. It's something about you, on either the way you react, on the way you think, the way you build your strategies, you plan and you schedule for the future, any of these problems that have to do with you. Those you can control because it depends on you. Okay, so this is another type of exercise where you narrow down all the solutions to the ones you have most control over, even if it will not solve the problem directly. So you will have to work on 2 fronts. One, you work on the problem, you have to solve that problem before it becomes real serious, but at the same time you also have to then adopt strategies that will enable you to work on yourself where you have more control. Finally, the 5th point is, what is the solution that will enhance your growth as a person, as a business owner, and as the business itself? Because, look, every problem is there for a reason. And that reason is to help us grow. That's all there is to it. It's not to make us rich. It's not to make us wealthy or, to make us feel good. No, there's only one reason why problems happen, and that's to challenge us to grow. So ultimately, what you have to see, what is the solution of the many solutions that you come up with, the one that will enable you to grow more, to make you stronger, to make you more solid. And you have to become very counterintuitive on that. Because I'm not talking how it's going to make you stronger because it's going to make you have more money. That's not it. It has to make you stronger as a person. It has to make you stronger in a way that it will enable you to face problems in the future in a different way, to think in a different way, to help you rise from one level to another more easily and faster and quicker, so that you can come up with ideas that are authentically alternative to the common way of coming up with solutions. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying growth. So what is the solution? And that is the solution that will give you more work, that will give you more headaches, that will, ask you to strain, to make the strongest effort. But ultimately, that is the one that will help you most. Okay, so these are the 5 things. And I think that's, just about it as far as counterintuitiveness is concerned. So I guess we'll just see ourselves in the next post. Thanks for now.